From the tombs that lie beneath our feet to towering steeples above our heads, it's no mystery that Charleston is a mecca of history. Let's welcome Dr. Nic Butler, historian for Charleston County Public Library, with a clever podcast that should be on all of our playlists. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you.
So the Charleston Time Machine. So tell us about this podcast.
Well, the Charleston Time Machine's been around for 6 years now, and it's through the Charleston County Public Library, so it's totally free. It exists as a traditional podcast, audio that you can download, but it's also an illustrated blog, so you could read it through the website of the Charleston County Public Library.
And who do you feature in these podcasts? What is the topic of discussion
So
usually?
the Charleston Time Machine is just about Charleston history, Charleston County, big history, but it's about the people and the places and the events that form our history. So I'm jumping around from the 16th century to the 20th century and talking about biographies and talking about themes like, talking about slavery, talking about foodways, talking about transportation, all kinds of history that affects how our community got to be the way it is.
I love that we do deep history, but also more recent history.
Yeah.
And we're creating history as we speak. Charleston is constantly evolving, and just within the last decade, it's incredible how much it's changed. But this particular month, you're featuring a woman who has a really incredible background that I think most people have never heard of her before.
Right, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing this. With the Charleston Time Machine, I really like to dredge up history that is really significant and interesting, but perhaps you've never heard of. Like this woman, Blanche Hermine Petit-Barbot, who was born in Belgium in 1842 and came here to Charleston in 1852 and stayed the rest of her life as a professional musician.
Wow. And in reading her history, I thought it was so fascinating to learn that she was a child prodigy musician, but she got it from her father. Her father was also an incredibly accomplished musician and composer, but he supported her in attaining her talent and honing her talent and skill. So how unusual is that for those days? I mean, we're talking mid-1800s.
Right, so in some respects, what Victor Petit, the father of Blanche, did was kind of progressive because he did not lie about her age like Mozart's father did.
Sure.
And she was a child prodigy, and he recognized that, and he took her to grand salons and introduced her to royalty in Belgium, and then brought her to the United States and really helped to shape her career. But unfortunately, he died when Blanche was 13 here in Charleston. So Blanche Petit, at that time, became a professional musician in Charleston at age 13.
Wow.
She took over the family business.
Yeah,
basically.
he had a sad ending. He died of yellow fever, I think.
At Sullivan's Island, in fact.
At Sullivan's Island, no kidding. Isn't that where they went to get away from
Exactly.
yellow fever?
So as a musician, as a music teacher, as an entertainer, he went with the people who were summering at Sullivan's Island. Unfortunately died there.
That's so sad, but what an indelible impact that he made on her life when she was so young, 13, but then she went on to have this illustrious career, and she passed away in her 70s, which again is unusual for those days.
And she was active up until the last months of her life as organist at the Catholic Cathedral on Broad Street. And her daughter, also named Blanche, took over that position and continued for decades afterwards.
Where does the Barbot name come from?
So the Barbot family, they're French refugees who had moved to Charleston in the early 19th century. So they were already here. So Blanche Petit married into another French family here in Charleston.
The French Huguenots, is that
well, it's
correct, or is that something else?
The Huguenots were mostly early colonial history, and then later there were waves of French Catholic refugees who came to us through the West Indian Islands.
And I have to say, I think probably her legacy is also living in just how heavily important music is to Charleston. I mean, with the Charleston Symphony Orchestra and all of the other efforts, that really celebrate her past as well.
And one of my favorite stories about Blanche is in the 1870s, after the Civil War, she's conducting orchestral concerts here in Charleston. So in many ways, she's kind of the grandmother of the Charleston Symphony.
Wow.
But she, her legacy has been forgotten. So that's what I'm going to focus on at a podcast later in March here for Women's History Month.
Oh, great. Oh, I can't wait to hear this. It's very kind of you and good of you to resurrect her memory. And really, we should all know who she is.
Absolutely.
So where can people download the podcast?
Well, you can listen to the podcast through the Charleston County Public Library website, ccpl.org, or wherever you are fond of getting your podcast from, Apple or Google or what have you.
Wonderful. We're going to do that. We're going to put it up on the screen. Dr. Butler, so good to have you with us.
Thank you, Leila.
We're back after this.